We wake up in a world where everyone is still asleep. Not literally, of course, or else this video would be very, very weird. But they are asleep figuratively, addicted to their devices, tapping, swiping, scrolling through the infinite feed. If we suddenly disappeared from their lives, what would happen? Welcome to What Happens If. Today, we're going to find out what happens if the internet disappears forever. But don't forget to stay tuned for more videos like these. So let's imagine a dystopian future. The year is 2025. You're sitting at your computer, working on your latest YouTube video, when suddenly everything goes black. You check your phone, no signal. You ask your AI assistant, it's silent. You step outside, the birds are chirping, the sun is shining. You walk up to your neighbor and ask, "Do you have internet?" He looks at you like you're speaking Martian. "What's internet?" he asks. It turns out the internet, one of humanity's greatest inventions, has just disappeared forever. So what now? First, a little disclaimer. This is, of course, a purely hypothetical scenario, so don't panic. Now, the internet isn't going anywhere anytime soon, but who knows what the future holds. Besides, it's fun to think about what would happen. It makes us realize how dependent we are on our ever-growing tech ecosystem. For better or for worse, it's part of our lives now. Now, to answer the question, what would happen if the internet disappeared? Let's look at how long it would take for the consequences to start piling up. We split this into 6 segments depending on how quickly different systems would fail. Of course, some things would go away instantly and others would last days or even weeks. So be sure to stay tuned to find out what happens next. In the first hours after the internet disappeared, most people wouldn't panic. They might notice something was wrong, but it wouldn't hit them just yet. After all, it's a Monday morning and people have places to be. On their way to work, however, they'd start facing issues. Communication apps like WhatsApp, Zoom, and even Gmail would go silent. International calls would cease. Businesses would immediately begin losing money. Airlines would be unable to communicate with air traffic control, so planes would be grounded. Global supply chains would screech to a halt. No Amazon packages would be delivered. No Walmart stock would be replenished. At T-Mobile would stop dispensing cash. The global financial system would grind to a halt. No money would be transferred. Banks would be unable to conduct transactions. The Dow Jones Industrial Average would drop 99%. Bitcoin would plummet to zero. The entire crypto market would collapse, and you wouldn't even be able to buy a cup of coffee using your phone. If you had no cash on you, you'd be doomed. And while all of this was happening, your friend across town would be trying to get to work using Google Maps only to find out the app wasn't working. No problem. He thinks he's got a backup plan. He checks his phone for directions. Oh wait, no cell signal. Panicking now, he pulls out his trusty Garmin GPS device only to remember he left it at home. Now he's really freaking out because he's gonna be late to work unless he uses the good old-fashioned method of asking for directions. And he doesn't know anyone. Luckily, his company is understanding and allows him to work from home since he's got a great Wi-Fi connection. Or maybe this is the perfect excuse to take a well-needed vacation. But before he logs onto his favorite travel site, he gets a call from his boss asking why he hasn't started work yet. He tries calling back, but his phone has no signal. His smartwatch is dead. His laptop is useless. He's completely cut off from the outside world. He should go outside and get some fresh air. That'll clear his head. He decides to leave the house. He might see other people aimlessly walking around, checking their phones every few seconds. But he won't need to join them because he'll be glued to his phone too. He'll walk around the city looking for a Starbucks, assuming they'll have Wi-Fi and he'll be able to connect. But he won't be able to order anything because credit card terminals won't be working either. The cash register won't accept his cash. There's no way to prove its validity. And the barista won't risk accepting it without verification. He'll end up leaving empty-handed and still desperate for a cup of coffee. So that's what would happen in the first hours. But what would happen in the first day and the first week without internet? After all, it's just the internet. You can live without it, right? Wrong. Once the shock wore off, people would start to realize how much the internet permeates our daily lives. Online banking would be gone. Credit card payments would be useless. Social media accounts would be inaccessible. People would feel cut off from the world. They'd try turning on the TV, but there would be no cable. The only way to catch up on current events would be to listen to the radio if you own one. Otherwise, you'd be completely in the dark. The funny thing is that nowadays, many people rely on their smartphones for basic information. Ask someone under 30 how to get to a place, and chances are they'll whip out their phone. Older people are more likely to ask locals for directions or use a map. But without the internet, both options would be useless. No map means no Google Maps, no local means no cell signal. People would start heading to banks to withdraw cash, but ATM would be out of service. Banks would reopen their physical locations though. Its customers would line up outside waiting to get inside. There would be chaos everywhere. Chaos in the streets, chaos in the shops, chaos in the factories, chaos in the offices. But there would be no chaos at school. That's because schools would shut down. Online education platforms would be unavailable. Many schools don't even have computers, so they'd have no choice but to cancel classes. The same would happen with work. Millions of online jobs would simply vanish. Telecommuters would be unable to access their work. Apps like Slack and Microsoft Teams would be unusable. Without the internet, work would come to a complete standstill. Supply chains would break down, supermarkets would run out of food, and restaurants would run out of ingredients. By the second day, people would start realizing the gravity of the situation. The internet isn't coming back. At least, not anytime soon. Panic would set in, and the mad rush to purchase supplies would begin. People would raid supermarkets. They'd fight over canned goods, water, batteries, generators, whatever they could get their hands on. Cities would descend into chaos. People would be desperate to get their hands on resources. Riots would break out. Stores would be looted. Things would get ugly pretty fast. And it's not like law enforcement would be able to restore order because they depend on the internet too much. Their communication systems would be down. Cameras would be dark. Databases would be inaccessible. The police force itself would descend into chaos. After a few days, things would start getting back to normal, sort of. Shops would restock their shelves, at least with what they had before the internet went down. People would go back to their daily routines, except now they'd have to do everything the hard way. Finding a partner would be near impossible. You can forget about swiping right on Tinder or browsing profiles on Facebook. Dating apps would be offline. People would have to meet in person to date. The economy would implode. Companies relying on e-commerce would disappear forever. They would have no way to generate revenue. Crypto investors would watch their digital assets plummet to zero. Global trade would grind to a halt. The world would be plunged into darkness. Well, not really, but it would be a lot harder to find your way around. Street signs would be useless. There would be no Google Translate. So if you wanted to find somewhere or communicate with someone who doesn't speak your language, you'd be out of luck. But hey, at least you'd be healthier. Without the internet, people would stop mindlessly scrolling through feeds. They'd rediscover hobbies, sports, socializing. Some people might even find peace and quiet. After all, many people are addicted to their devices. Losing them forever would be devastating, but also a blessing in disguise. But others wouldn't see it that way. Many people would fall into a deep depression. They'd have nothing to fill their time with. They'd feel completely lost. Suicide rates would skyrocket. Mental health professionals would be overwhelmed. It would take months or even years to adapt to a world without the internet. Libraries would make a comeback. People would start writing letters again. Books would become bestsellers. Board games would be back. But everything would be much slower. The world would lose billions of gigabytes. Think about it. When was the last time you talked to someone face to face? When was the last time you read a book instead of watching a movie? Can you remember the last time you didn't have your phone on you? We're so used to instant gratification. We crave content and we want it yesterday. We're addicted to likes and comments. We need validation, and we need it now. A year after the internet disappeared, society would readapt. People would find new ways to entertain themselves. But the world would never be the same. It would be much slower, much quieter. And maybe that's not a bad thing. So that's what would happen if the internet disappeared forever. Total chaos, but maybe also a chance to start over. What do you think? Could you survive offline? Let me know in the comments, and subscribe for more videos like these.